With our markers in place, it's time to think about the tempo of this music. So I did a little work when you weren't here, nothing you haven't seen, but I made some tracks. And I wanted to show you that the markers by themselves just hang out up here in the marker timeline. But if I show all tracks, there are yellow lines that drip down from the marker. And that makes it really easy to spot where they fall with bar lines or whatever. So I've switched from time code to bars and beats because I want to find the tempo of this music and I want to know where these markers line up with bars and beats. At 122, which is a number I just picked out of the air, let's go back to 120, they don't fall really on bar lines very well. Here's that marker, so they're all over the bar line. There's a creative discussion to have here briefly too. I think that each time you go through this process, you'll look at tempo and you'll say, what is the lowest tempo that I can reasonably expect to have, and what's the highest? That's a creative discussion, not a technical discussion. I could score this at 70 beats per minute, kind of but it doesn't feel like it wants that creatively. I could probably put a bass and drum thing to it at 160 beats a minute, and it also doesn't feel like it wants that. That might be a little too frantic for the piece that I have. Have that creative discussion about what's the lowest tempo you will accept and what's the highest tempo. And then you want to try and find the one that works in that range. So if I go to 140 beats a minute, I have more likelihood of hitting a bar, don't I? Because bars are happening more often now. But again, I'm kind of in the cracks here. If I played this, why don't we go ahead and do that? Okay, so things are happening, but the music's not happening with the video. So I know that somewhere in here, there's a nice range where things happen on a bar. And if I get to about here, let's try 132. This event happens on a bar, this one happens on a bar, this one happens on a bar, and this one happens on a bar. Let me zoom just a little bit. How did I know that? Well, yeah, I did build this movie, you're right. But I'm just watching the markers and where they fall on the timeline. And remember, these are not frame accurate events. In other words, it isn't like a ball hitting a bat. It's not a specific frame of video. These are sort of evolutionary markers. Does it happen there, or, right? We have some wiggle room here. If we actually go with the very first frame of light on all these markers, I think we'll find that they fall exactly on the bar lines. But close enough was close enough in this case. So now let's see what it looks like in terms of structure. Four bars in front, and then something happens there, something happens there, something happens there, something happens there. And I would say that we found the magic tempo now where the music and the video are working together. So let me go to here, and we'll put in a groove part. Okay, that doesn't feel like that wants to start until I should be doing this in grid. Now let's listen at 5. Okay, well, that would be cool if those were a little shorter, maybe. So let's select all of these notes and make them less than a bar. Let's make them quarter notes. And listen at 5. Okay, let's do half notes. Let me put a bass part on this. That's getting better. That's more like what I wanted. We'll just come in at bar 5 here. The bars are changing. probably wants to go back to the key of E there. So the notes aren't important. It's the process. Just take this guy back to E. Well, let me grab that note. And I think we're there. So this guy got pushed that note back a little bit. I really should quantize this whole thing. That's the process of getting the music to line up with the pictures. So make your markers, be sure they're SMPTE markers, and then experiment with tempos until you find that the markers are lining up with bars and beats.